Now we stay in Asia for the last speaker in this official opening session, last but not least, Ms. Loren Legarda, who's Senator from the Philippines and the ISDR Champion for Disaster Risk Reduction for Asia and Pacific. Madam Senator, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good noon to all of you. Under Secretary General John Holmes, Assistant Secretary Margareta Wallstrom, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. 2 years ago, the Global Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction came to life through the participation of the same distinguished delegates convened here today to address the heightened scale of disaster vulnerability and climate risks in many parts of the world. Under Secretary John Holmes, posed then the challenge to advance a global agenda for reducing disaster risks in order to save human lives and to preserve human development gains. Yet, the interlude year of 2008 proved most demonstrative of the enormity and the persistence of the global disaster risk problem and the urgency of action at all levels and in all fronts. Disasters killed about 250,000 people, affected more than 200 million lives. The total economic cost was a stunning $180 billion, which is twice the average annual economic losses of the past 7 years. And the region of Asia and the Pacific, which I humbly represent, bore much of the brunt, accounting for more than 80% of the global loss of life. What drives the disaster risks and poverty in the context of climate change? The Global Assessment Report on Disaster Risk Reduction has recently found with empirical evidence. Poor urban governance, vulnerable rural livelihoods, and ecosystems decline. In the Philippines, my country, disaster and destruction in grand or small scale are a common visitor. Located on the fringe of the Pacific Ocean and right within the Ring of Fire, the archipelago is exposed to typhoons about 20 times each passing year and to strong earthquakes and powerful volcanic eruptions. As a country and people at risk, we need to rethink our approach to pursuing and protecting our development from the regressive impacts of disasters along the priorities of the Hyogo Framework for Action and the recommendations of the Global Assessment Report. Beyond the respective countries, the world must act more swiftly, more wisely, and more decisively to seize and reduce disaster risks more effectively. Fortunately today, concerned with the unrelenting losses, the grim prospects of climate change impacts, and the Herculean tasks to arrest them, we have all gathered here for the second time in greater number to sustain this global forum and to bring hope for the future with renewed commitment and greater resolve to confront the greatest humanitarian challenge of our time. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the challenge of the 21st century to world leaders has never been more pronounced and more compelling than in the present. The challenge in politics and governance is persuasively clear. Fundamentally, we must all understand that our socio-economic vulnerability depends much on the choices we make and the actions we take, as leaders and as decision makers, as planners and as builders, and as members of a society and a community. Truth to tell, disasters are not inevitable. They can be averted. Our lack of political will, poor understanding of risks, disregard for the prevention and mitigation, ineffective preparedness for response, our failure to take action, and our apathy and our complacency. All these transform natural hazards and climate change to a disaster. We must therefore realize that we have actually shaped the disaster risks in our midst by the way we change our environment and the way we choose to live in it. If only we recognize the risks our actions could bring and take decisive actions to reduce them, we could mitigate, if not prevent, disasters from happening and protect way ahead human lives and livelihoods from the harmful forces of nature. There is no more fitting time to say that reducing disaster risk has become a moral imperative for governments and a social responsibility for all that now, when having less in life means losing life. The present task of reducing disaster risks in the context of poverty, of social inequality, of gender imbalance, and climate change has now become synonymous with preserving humanity and securing the future of our children and our grandchildren today. It is therefore a task no one can afford to ignore. To us leaders and lawmakers of nations, of societies, the task at hand calls for a new brand of politics, the kind of politics that has genuine regard for human development and a forceful vision for the future of humanity. The kind of politics that ushers proactive laws and policies and reforms our conventional way of thinking and doing. The task at hand also calls for a new brand of governance, the kind of governance that ensures risk reduction laws and regulations are passed and implemented and creates the necessary enabling environment to translate sustainable development strategies into practical and measurable gains, the kind of governance that translates political commitment into real actions and results for the people at national and local levels. So much remains to be done to usher our desired change and to make an enduring difference in building the resilience of nations and communities. The predominance of risks in our societies calls for urgent policy reforms. We need new policies that build local capacity beyond disaster response capability. New policies that link disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation and mainstream them into development action and formal education. New policies that reduce and not worsen existing vulnerabilities and risks. New policies that make reducing risk a prerequisite for development funding. New policies that ensure the resilience of our development investments. New policies that are backed by scientific studies and empirical proofs. New policies that are sensitive to indigenous knowledge systems. New policies that promote gender sensitivity and equality. New policies that uphold fairness and equity, especially for the poor and the disadvantaged. There is no more appropriate time to show political will, good governance, and exemplary leadership than these trying times. Indeed, these times call for a new brand of leaders. Leaders of integrity and responsibility. Leaders of wisdom and compassion. Leaders of conscience and conviction. Leaders who are truly committed to eradicating poverty and uplifting humanity. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the challenge in development is undeniably clear. Through the centuries, since the Industrial Revolution, Mother Earth has been at the mercy of humans' insatiable desires for material wealth and economic progress. Yet, our ways of thinking and pursuing development have depleted our social, cultural, and natural wealth. Sadly, we must admit, our so-called development have made the poor more vulnerable, has placed some cultures at risk of extinction, and has pushed ecosystem services like fisheries